I am 18 years old and a young man facing a difficult family history. At the age of 8, I went through my parents' divorce. As a result of the circumstances, an agreement was reached between them whereby my mother took possession of a Labrador Retriever and my father took on the responsibility of raising me. For nearly a decade, I had not had the opportunity to see my mother until she contacted me out of the blue 2 months ago. During our conversation, she expressed regret for the past years and admitted that she missed me very much. She explained that feeling ashamed of her decision had prevented her from re-establishing contact with me earlier. Recently, we started communicating again and even had a private meeting where I introduced her to a friend of mine, also 18 years old. The situation became more complicated when my girlfriend noticed my tension in the presence of my mother. When she asked me the reason for this state of mind, I did not hesitate to share the story of our custody agreement. After this conversation, my girlfriend, angered by what she heard, decided to call my mother and expressed her displeasure in a very emotional way. My mother subsequently pointed out to me that I should not have shared this information with my girlfriend, suggesting that it might have caused unwanted embarrassment. I now realize that my candor may have led not only to misunderstanding, but also to deep disappointment on my mother's part. 10 years have passed and now, finally, your mother has decided to contact you. I am truly sorry to hear about your situation. I hope your father turned out to be a wonderful man and was able to compensate for these circumstances to some extent. Indeed, your mom must feel quite embarrassed about what has happened. She has no power over your personal story in this situation. This story belongs to you, and you are free to share it with whomever you wish. Now you realize that sharing this story with people can cause different and sometimes unexpected reactions. In the interest of your own protection, it is worth carefully considering who to trust with this information. Having lost the ability to control the narrative during the years when she couldn't be around to offer an alternative version of events, she now faces the challenge of overcoming her embarrassment on her own. Trusting her partner is not a sign of stupidity, but when she decides to act against accepted boundaries by calling your mom, that action may look inappropriate. Your mom's action has raised a lot of questions. Now you are faced with the choice of whether to keep your relationship with her or give her the opportunity to right her wrongs. Your girlfriend is better off staying out of the situation. Be careful about the topics you discussed with her in the future. The girl is 18 years old and has a sense of personal boundaries and self-control. I had a father in my life who emotionally rejected me and cut off communication over 10 years ago. While I don't expect similar behavior from my future partner, I wouldn't be offended if they did the same. It would show that they genuinely care about me and could not tolerate the idea that someone who was supposed to love me unconditionally had hurt me. If my father tried to interfere in my life, I wouldn't let him speak, given his past actions. Your mom left you when you were 8 years old. Some might call your unwillingness to forgive her petty, but I believe that is your right. Your girlfriend's reaction, in my opinion, should have been your own. To abandon your newly established relationship with your mother in favor of someone who shows me more care and attention. Next story. My spouse devotes 12 hours to his workday. This far exceeds the standard 40-hour workweek, effectively doubling his workload. For 5 days a week, he endured this schedule in an effort to set aside money for a rainy day. Now let's get to the context of our situation. Our family has 4 children, a teenager, an elementary school child, a preschooler, and an infant. When I was 6 months pregnant, mold and mice were discovered in our apartment building that we didn't know existed. Having 3 cats in the house apparently masked the problem, and the mold was invisible to us. Living under constant stress and with a partner who ignores your needs and well-being is unacceptable. Ironically, no amount of extra effort can fix the current state of affairs unless you change the very way you approach the situation. You should not hope that the situation will simply improve, because experience shows that most of the problems were noticeable 2 years ago as well. Your husband is not looking for another place to live, not because there are no suitable options, but because he does not want to change. He seems to be happy with the current situation, since his friend is close by. Your opinions and needs seem to be ignored, which negatively affects you and your children's education. It may be time for decisive action to make him realize the seriousness of the situation. Go back to your mom's house where you will be given support and help in caring for the children. Your partner seems unable to take you and your feelings seriously. You don't need to wait for his permission or consent, as yours and your children's well-being comes first. Living in an environment where there is no comfort, safety, or quiet is unacceptable. You need to make a decision that will make a difference. Pack up the kids and move in with your mom. If your husband wants to join and contribute to solving the problems that have arisen, he can do so. The main thing is to act without waiting for approval or permission. Now I want to tell a different story. I'm 25 years old and I'm a woman. Almost a year ago, I got married. My husband and I couldn't afford to go on our honeymoon right after we got married. Because of this, we decided to postpone the trip and save up for a trip to Hawaii to celebrate our first anniversary. Plans for the celebration were made for the following month. We shared these plans with our family. Suddenly, my 23-year-old brother stated that he thought Hawaii was a great idea. He added that he and his boyfriend would also be joining us. My surprise was great. I explained that this trip was not just a vacation for us, but our delayed honeymoon. My brother suggested a double coupe honeymoon so they could enjoy the experience with us. I objected, suggesting that he could organize a separate trip if he wished to commemorate such an event. However, he accused me of selfishness for not wanting to share this moment with him. He mentioned that because of our country's legislation, he would not be able to experience a real honeymoon due to restrictions on same-sex marriage. This opinion was echoed by my parents, especially my mom, and my dad, as usual, agreed with her to avoid a family disagreement. I confess, at that moment, I even thought of telling my brother the wrong coordinates of our anniversary celebration so that he and his boyfriend would not be able to find us. My misunderstanding with my brother seems irrational. He wants to celebrate his honeymoon, but wants to do it by traveling with another couple. My husband and I would prefer no outsiders on our honeymoon. The point of a honeymoon is for two people, you and your partner, to enjoy each other in complete isolation. Your brother is certainly entitled to his own vacation. However, a honeymoon is meant exclusively for the two of you. It is preferable to choose a vacation destination while remaining a secret from everyone, including details about your stay and plans for that time. In case your brother is already aware of your location, it is worth considering changing your destination without notifying him. It is worth emphasizing that you have the right to refuse any contact during the trip if it is not part of your plans. All expenses related to accommodation, food, activities, and transportation should be borne by your sibling if they choose to follow you. In case they show up unexpectedly without prior notice, you don't have to change your plans for them. Sometimes you may need to act unconventionally to avoid unwanted attention, such as misleading them about your present destination. You can inform them that you plan to visit a place that your brother clearly dislikes, thus keeping your true intentions a secret. Given that many people choose to visit multiple places on their honeymoon, even if your brother decides to make the trip, there is a good chance that your paths will not cross. While the idea of planning your honeymoon as if you were hiding out may seem strange, it is justified in your case. It's important to decide everything in advance so that you can fully enjoy every moment of your big event. My next story. At my 17th birthday, life is a complicated picture. I am an adopted son carrying the burden of post-traumatic stress disorder. The sound of a baby crying acts like a trigger on me, snapping me out of my state of calm and plunging me into deep irritation. This is something I have dealt with for years, experiencing moments when joy and cheerfulness seem unattainable. My older sister, who is 23, lives with us, me and our mom. We recently learned that she is pregnant. Initially, the news caused a flurry of emotion, but she eventually decided to keep the baby. 6 months later, it seems that she had intended to move, but after weighing everything, she decided to stay, believing that she would need her mother's support. This decision deeply saddens me. I am unwilling to share the space of my home with an infant, especially since my stress disorder is already testing the patience of those around me. I have expressed to my mom that I would prefer that the baby not live with us, otherwise I will consider moving in with my father, who lives 3 states away. My father is a wonderful man, but because of his business, my mom was always concerned that I might lack long-distance support. My mom met my proposal with deep frustration, and my sister called me selfish. My cousin thinks that I should wait and accept the child as part of the family, while some relatives are sure that this neighborhood will be a kind of therapy for me. However, I am skeptical of this idea. My mom is looking for a compromise that would allow both of us to stay, but I reject any proposal, considering it unrealistic. Although she insists that I give this situation a chance, I adamantly refuse, not wanting to disturb my personal space with the presence of a child. My sister is convinced that my unwillingness to accept the infant makes me an unworthy member of the family. My reaction has caused my father concern as well, although he is generally quite calm about the situation. While in treatment and therapy, I am faced with a dilemma. My feelings and needs are in opposition to my family's wishes and expectations. You have every right to choose to live in your father's home, especially if having a newborn in your current home with your mom is not conducive to your comfort and inner peace. Given that you have been diagnosed with PTSD, the importance of being in an environment that does not exacerbate your problems cannot be overemphasized. Your decision to avoid a situation that may be an additional source of stress due to the presence of your child is based on concern for your own health. You need to clearly communicate to the mother your intention to move in with the father and justify this decision without putting her in the position of having to choose. Your decision to leave is intended to seek personal comfort, not to put pressure on your mom or sister. Realizing that your PTSD may pose a danger to others, including the infant, underscores the importance of the steps you have taken. Criticism of you based on the assumption that you are trying to create discord in the family or force mom to choose between you and your sister does not take into account the totality of the circumstances. Your desire to protect yourself and move to a safer environment is a priority that should not be perceived as selfishness. However, it is important to keep in mind that moving in with your father, especially if it involves moving from one state to another, can have legal ramifications, especially if minors are involved. Jurisdiction and parental rights issues require careful consideration and perhaps consultation with an attorney to avoid unforeseen legal problems. There is another avenue, suggesting that the sister move in with other relatives or acquaintances who can provide support for her and the infant. Such a solution could be a compromise that makes life easier for all parties and minimizes stress for you. A story that really surprised me. My wife and I have 3 children, 2 sons ages 34 and 30, and a daughter aged 26. Through successful careers, we were able to pay for their college education. The cost of tuition varied depending on the year and the university chosen, but generally stayed about the same for all 3. After receiving their degrees, our sons immediately began working, while our daughter chose the path of graduate school. My wife and I supported her decision as we had always valued education highly and felt that if we could help, we should. This decision caused resentment from my sons. They claimed that we had spoiled their sister and insisted on equal treatment. My position was clear. Since my daughter continued her education, she deserved additional support. The eldest son suggested setting up an educational fund for the grandchildren instead of funding the daughter's graduate school. I responded that it was the parents' responsibility to raise and educate their children, just as my children are my responsibility. I emphasized that this doesn't mean I don't love my grandchildren. I genuinely love them, but I do not believe that my children should rely on my financial support to raise them. My remarks caused my sons to become frustrated. They accused me and my wife of being selective, making my daughter the favorite. Also, the sons recalled past situations, claiming that this was not the first time we had been biased. They recalled how, as teenagers, they were bought less clothes than was customary, while their sister, being a regular teenage girl, received more attention in this matter. You find pleasure in shopping, seeing it as a way to give her the money that was not offered to your sons. They did not request such support and therefore did not receive it, unlike your daughter who actively expressed her wishes. It makes you wonder about the fairness of this approach, even if your intentions seem right to you. Even though other family members may see the situation differently, you believe you are acting in the right way. This may raise questions about equality and fairness within the family. It may be worth rethinking and offering something similar to your sons, especially if your daughter is perceived as the golden child. Such a view may contain a grain of truth, although we may not always recognize it. An objective perspective can be helpful. The path to a better future is not limited to university or higher education. It is important to remember that financial support from parents is not the only way to succeed in life. Your family may have always had the means to fulfill your children's desires, which may have created certain expectations in them. But it's important to remember that fairness doesn't always mean equality, and life can be unpredictable. As a parent, you have every right to manage your funds as you see fit. Your adult children can take care of their finances on their own. Family relationships, including responsibilities and expectations, are determined by you and your children.